All right, guys, welcome to this segment of In the Field with UK Extension. I'm Adam Huber. I'm here with Jason Phillips. And Jason, today we're going to be talking about a pretty unique topic, and that's whip grafting.
Yeah. So as you can see here, we've got several items in front of us, and we're going to talk about those items and what you're going to need in order to whip graft,
Right.
to perform a proper whip graft. But first, some of our viewers may be wondering, well, what is a whip graft and why do I need to know how to do it?
Right.
Well, first off, we're going to be talking about reproducing apple trees through whip grafting. And there's several different types of grafting, but we're going to focus on whip grafts today. So what we have here is a rootstock. This is a 1/4-inch rootstock. And I'll talk a little bit about that too, and some sign wood or a twig that was taken from a tree, the desirable type of apple tree with the traits we're looking for when the trees were dormant and
Right.
kept cool.
Right.
We had to order the rootstock.
And what variety, Jason, are the rootstock that we've got here?
These are Malling 7, and we do have a publication about selecting rootstocks, and typically we have to order those rootstocks. Some companies require larger orders than others, so you'll just have to check around. And in our rootstock publication, I do believe that it does tell you what the various companies are that you can order these from. And you got to get your order in early in the fall, because a lot of these large orchards will buy up a lot of these rootstocks, because over time they've started planting their trees more densely and going with smaller trees, which are easier to manage. And so one reason that we choose the rootstock is going to determine the height of the tree.
Right.
And this is a pretty common rootstock. It's Malling 7. It's probably the smallest tree that you can get that doesn't require staking.
And this is a semi-dwarf, right?
It's a semi-dwarf, meaning it's 60 to 70%, when it's mature, 60 to 70% the size of a standard tree.
Right.
So like I said, the advantage with the smaller trees is it's easier to cover with fungicides and sprays, which if you're going to be successful, even if you utilize recommended varieties from the University of Kentucky with good disease resistance, that does not mean it's immune to these diseases, so you're going to have to continue to follow a spray schedule.
Right. And also with the shorter statured trees, it's a whole lot easier for harvest as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of advantages, and so a lot of these commercial orchards, like I was saying, are going to rootstocks that are dwarf rootstocks, meaning they require staking and planting even more densely, so that they can more easily spray and harvest those fruit crops. So we've got the rootstock, and that determines the size of the tree and some of the disease qualities, the disease resistance qualities, and also then the sign wood, which is what we will be connecting to and showing you how to connect to the rootstock through a whip graft, is going to determine the flavor, the size, the color, and also some of the disease resistance characteristics.
And we're not going to get into it today, but with grafting, you could have multiple different varieties of trees grafted onto one rootstock.
Oh yeah, you could do that, or in a mature tree, you can actually do various types of grafts and have a limb of a different type of peach, for instance, or plum. So it's pretty cool. You can do some neat things with grafting.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned peaches and plums. I mean, because you can not only graft apple trees, but you can graft other fruit trees species as well, as like you said, peaches, plums, pears, and things like that. But today we're just working with the apple trees.
Right. And I think one important factor that I probably failed to mention earlier that I should say is some people still may say, well, why are you going to all this trouble? Well, when you plant apple seeds, they're not true from seed. So if you plant apple seeds of a particular type, there's no telling what you're going to get. Size, flavor, and so we have to perform different methods of asexual reproduction, such as grafting, to ensure that we're getting the traits that we want.
Right.
So that's why we're doing this.
Right. So I think we've covered everything as far as all the material and while we're going to do it. So I think you want to go ahead and try to show the grafting and
Sure.
get right to it.
Okay.
All right, guys. So now what we're going to do is kind of go over our material list of what we're going to need for our grafting. As we said before, this is our rootstock and our scion wood, and some other things we're going to need are some labels. We're going to need to label our varieties or our cultivars of our scion wood and our rootstock. Obviously, we're going to need some Sharpies. We're going to need some fingernail polish to put over the ends of the scion wood once we get it grafted to kind of act as a sealant. We're going to need some masking tape for when we do our actual graft. We're going to tape it up with our masking tape here. We'll need some bags to we're going to put these our trees in these bags, and you don't have to have these tree bags. You can use just normal grocery bags that you'd get at your local grocery store. We're going to need some water. We got water in our cup here, and then we're also going to need some paper towels. And the two most important things that we're going to need is our pruning snippers, and then also a good sharp knife. This is the key tool here that you're going to need, is to make sure that you have a really good sharp knife, because once we start to do our actual graft, we're going to be cutting our scion wood and our rootstock. So definitely want to have a good sharp knife for once we get started on that. So this is kind of our material list, and we'll get started with our actual grafting now. Alright, so now we're going to get into the grafting section of the video here. So the first thing we need to do is take our scion wood and match up a piece with our rootstock, because we want to make sure they're the same diameter or pretty close, because you want your cambium layers to match up with the rootstock and the scion wood, because if your cambium layers doesn't match up correctly, then it could cause it not to grow properly or not to grow at all. So we've got our piece of scion wood here. We've got our rootstock. Those two match up fairly well. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our knife and we're going to make our first cut. So we're going to go about probably a third of the way down the rootstock. You're going to hold your knife in your hand just like this. Hold the rootstock in your other hand, and you're gonna pull the knife to you. You don't want to push it away from you, because you won't make a good cut if you do it that way. So we're just gonna steady our hand there, go up a little bit, and then we're just gonna make our cut. And a lot of times it'll look like that, so you just need to take your finger there and then pull it off like that. Now that's a good smooth cut. So now we're going to do the same thing with our scion wood. And one thing that we don't want to do is cut it backwards. We want to make sure that whenever we make our cut, that our buds are pointing upward, so it'll grow correctly. So we're going to turn this way. Then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make our cut on our scion wood. And it is a whole lot easier if you have a thinner diameter wood. Just makes your cutting a lot easier. So once we've got them both cut, we're going to make sure they match up. Might need just a little bit more taken off of that there. Okay. And one thing that we want to remember is not to rub our fingers over the end of the scion wood and get that oil on there, because if you do that, then it won't take. So those look good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make a slit in the rootstock and in the scion wood. We're going to go about a third of the way down. We're going to brace our thumb against our opposite hand there, so we don't cut ourselves. That's the most important thing. We want to make sure we're doing it safely. We're just going to go in there and make a slit. That's good there. Now we're going to do the same thing on the rootstock. once we've got that done, we're going to take both of them. We're going to put our slits together and then just slide the rootstock and the sign wood together just like that. And that right there is what it should look like. So after we've done that, we're going to take our masking tape, we're going to just tape it up. Should look just like that. So once we've got our rootstock and our sign wood taped up, we're going to take our pruning pliers and we're going to make sure that we're going to leave at least 2 to 3 growing points or buds on the sign wood, and we're just going to cut it off straight across just like that. Should look like that. Then this is where our fingernail polish comes in. Don't matter what color you use. You can use your wife's pretty peach color or any color that you like, and you're just gonna coat the top of it, and this acts as a sealant, so no diseases or anything gets down inside the wood there. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to set that right there. We're going to write down what our variety is, which was a M7, which is a mauling 7, and then our sign wood is a Gold Delicious. So M7, we're going to put a GD, Gold Delicious there. Take that off. Slip that on. So we definitely don't want to. This is a very important step as well, because you don't want to forget what you've got grafted on, especially if you're dealing with multiple cultivars or species. You don't want to forget what you've got grafted on, what different rootstock. So now what we're going to do, this is where a bag comes in. You can use these tree bags, you can use grocery sacks, just any type of bag. We're going to take our paper towels, we're going to take our water, we're just going to get that wet, then we're going to wrap our roots with the wet paper towels. That way they stay moist. So we're just going to stick that down in our bag, and we want to make sure that the whole tree is covered. Then we're just going to tie it up. And once you get all of your grafted trees finished and put in bags, you want to wait a minimum of 10 to 14 days with them in the bag before you want to go in there and you can transplant them into a garden. You can go ahead and transplant them into the orchard wherever you're going to be planting, or wherever you would like. You can even, if you got don't really know a place where you're going to have your orchard, you can even put them in containers until you find a permanent location for them. But once you get your tree grafted, it should look like this. Be put in your bag. Make sure you've got your wet paper towel in there. Keep the roots wet and moist, and that's basically all there is to it. And that right there is a whip graft.
All right, now it's been about 14 days, so we're going to take the tree out of our plastic bag here. I just untied this, so we're taking it out. We've got our tree that we grafted, the Mauling 7 Golden Delicious, and we're going to plant it here into our garden. And the reason that we're doing this is to ensure that the tree gets off to a good start. We can sort of baby it in our vegetable garden. We're going to have irrigation, which is going to help it whenever we get into hot, dry periods this summer. And then, this fall we'll transplant it to its permanent location. So we're just going to go ahead and put it in the ground. I've already got my hole dug, so we'll just place it in the ground here. Just fill back in with our dirt around it. And again, I don't have our irrigation run yet, but we're going to have trickle irrigation in this garden, so we will be able to keep it watered. And one important note is when you're planting it, don't get the soil above the graft, because that's going to put off roots, and then you won't have any effect really from your rootstock, and we're not gonna benefit. So we do not want the soil level to be above that graft. One additional point that I would make too is after you move your tree to your garden, we want to don't peel your masking tape off. You'll want to make 2 vertical slits in the masking tape in order to allow that tree to expand and grow. You do not want to peel the masking tape off, because if you do, you'll damage the bark, which then will damage the tree and it may not take.